It's Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, Episode 9. Does it stick the landing? Is it a good movie? I'm going to tell you all about it. Hey, this is Perch, doing a little movie review here on this happy Friday. Just got out of, well, not just got out, chatted a bit with some of the folks that we went to see the film with, of Star Wars, the last Skywalker, no, the Rise of Skywalker, the last new Rise of Skywalker Awakens. And some thoughts about the film, kind of in no particular order. We'll get to a proper review, but here's what I thought. So first off, um, just not about the film, but the previews have got to stop. Like, nothing is going to drive me out of ever going back to the theater than having to wade through, clocked at 35 minutes of trailers and commercials. It's just way too much. And the theater and the producers have to know this. People are going on social media, they're sharing trailers around. By the time, there's not a single trailer there that I have not already seen. So what is the point? Honestly, I don't know who is being influenced at this point. They're just annoyed. And you can look around the theater, people are pissed. And now with more and more theaters offering reserved seating, like, people are just not even going to show up and put up with this crap. So that's way too much time. So just right off the bat, too much time, no. But then the movie. It's funny, the opening crawl, right as the opening crawl was going on, the Star Wars, the Palpatine, there's a strange vision of Palpatine, voices are being heard. You immediately know that this is going to be kind of a nostalgic wrap up, and what I mean by that is they're going to kind of hit all the notes of the previous film. They're even going to start off with something a little bit reminiscent of Return of the Jedi in terms of how that film opened, and we're just going to get to doing kind of hitting the good notes. It's kind of Force Awakens 2. We're going to be hitting the notes, and that's not maybe a bad thing. A lot of people are going to be hitting J.J. Abrams for doing too much nostalgic bait and playing to the fans too much. And for a film like Star Wars, it is now stretched out for like the 70s, 80s, 90s, odds. We're almost at 50 years. Think about that, of time between the first one and today. God, that's painful to think about. Yikes. Anyway, we're past 40 years, going on 50 years. So when you have 9 movies stretched out among that amount of time, then going for something that's kind of a best of greatest hits kind of movie is not a bad thing. This is the core thread of Star Wars. We've had a million spin-offs and stuff that's been decanonized and all the rest. And that's where all the adventures and the other stories lie. And if you look at those movies, and this maybe spoils the reviews a little bit, but if I look at the core movies, not Rogue One, not Solo, but just the 9, now having watched the 9th, it makes the last one, The Last Jedi, to me, much, much worse. And I should say at this point, if you're coming in and you're like, oh, just another guy hates Rian Johnson, I haven't been on the hate Rian Johnson bandwagon. You won't find videos in my feed about, woke Star Wars or any of that crap, and I'm not going to go into it here. That's not my point. My point is, in watching this one, you're reminded of kind of the scope and the bigness of the universe, and also the heart of the characters, and kind of what those movies were trying to be. And meanwhile, if you go over to Rian Johnson's film, if you go over to Last Jedi, you got a film that was really trying to kind of get intimate with some moments about the film, and it had a lesson, a lesson within a lesson to tell, kind of about, in a war, they're selling weapons to all sides, and kind of that, love beats evil, and just kind of some of the lessons of Luke and the lessons of, how that film all played out. It was very similar to Rian Johnson's, like, Knives Out and some of his other films, where he's telling a smallish story, but he's doing a lot of character work, and he's doing a lot of that kind of material, and that's not what Star Wars has ever been. So The Last Jedi kind of sticks out like a sore thumb in terms of kind of its production. There's plenty of other bad moments in Star Wars history. Attack of the Clones was a bad movie, and if you watch that, like the gladiator scene at the end, like, there's some awful stuff in that film, and it just plays terribly. But in terms of its tone, The Last Jedi is more jarring then then once you watch this film, it feels even more jarring to the rest of the series. And so then that begs the question of, you know, well, I mean, so people who like The Last Jedi, who really liked it, are not liking this movie. They're like, oh, all the great lessons that Ryan Johnson set up, J.J. Abrams ignores or pisses all over them or changes them. And the argument would be, but didn't Ryan Johnson do that in his movie for the previous ones? You know, whether you liked or disliked Force Awakens, whether you thought it was repetitive or not, which it was, plenty repetitive, it was also repetitive playing the same notes of the film. So I guess it all comes down to, do you think Star Wars should evolve or not and change and become something else? Or do you think it should stick to kind of the thread of what it is? And from my perspective, yeah, it should evolve. There should be other spin-offs, but I think those should be the spin-offs or the other movies or the extended universe or long before Ryan Johnson came along, there were tons of books and comics and other things being made. By the way, if we're bringing up kind of social things with same-sex couples and other things in the books, this happened long before The Last Jedi, but that was erased when they decided to say, no, we're going to have the core thread of Star Wars be Star Wars. And by doing that, you can't. I don't think you can have your cake and eat it too. You can't do that and then say, okay, well, in the eighth movie, we're going to change what it is. Anyway, I'm talking too much about the eighth movie, not this movie. At any rate, the movie let's talk about in third. So the first third is a lot of action, almost too much action, and you kind of got the feeling like J.J. Abrams was trying to make up for things in the last film. I mean, he was erasing things left and right of where the movie was at. Really appreciated getting to see Poe, Finn, Rey, C-3PO, Chewbacca in one place at the same time, having an adventure together. That was the thing that was missing in the last movie, the idea that you have these characters who are set up who could bounce off of each other. They kind of set these characters in motion in Force Awakens, but then we didn't get a chance to see them interact. And so this film delivered on that promise, which was good. That was a good thing. And then in the second act, it slowed down a little bit. You got more character work. Now we're going to examine who Rey is. And the second act is really where Abrams was no longer just kind of making up for things, but actively erasing things from the previous film. Now we're going to go back and we're going to look at Rey's heritage again. We're going to go back and we're going to redefine the connection that Kylo and Rey have and why they have it. And we're going to, even undo some of the things that Luke did. We're going to kind of have his message be fundamentally different than it was in the last film. We're going to, change the Ben Solo dynamic. We're going to have him repair his helmet. We're going to have, there are lots of little elements where it was actively trying to set the pieces back on the board for the final act. And then the final act itself is, the big space battle of nonsense, which it always is. And that is that was silly in a lot of cases. It was very much a Return of the Jedi style. Ships are fighting. Rey's having a showdown with Palpatine and all the rest. It was very much. I mean, it was the same beats. If Force Awakens were the same beats of the original Star Wars, this had a lot of the same beats as Return of the Jedi, right down to the party at the end. So, things that worked in the film. I thought the breakneck pacing and some of the action and the fighting and the cutting from scene to scene, the idea of the hyperspace skipping and some of that, I thought that was good. I thought that was well done, interesting. I think that brought a few new things and also gave him a chance to kind of do some interesting things with ships. I smiled inwardly, at least a little bit, when somebody said, "Hey, let's just do the Holdo maneuver and blow up, send a ship into another ship." And I'm like, "That's a 1 in a million shot. Yeah, that's crazy talk. Let's not talk about that anymore." I'm glad they acknowledged it. They at least I like it when characters are smart. People who've listened to a lot of my shows and have heard me talk before know that I'm a big fan of Aliens, the second one, and Ripley in particular, because the character Ripley, in addition to being a tough woman, was also a smart woman. She talks about, why are we going to go in here and do hand-to-hand fighting with the aliens? Let's just get into our plane and go nuke them from space, which is like the smartest thing anybody had said in a sci-fi horror-style movie. And yet, that's not what a lot of films do. So in this one, the fact that they were bringing up some of these ideas and then shooting them down, good. It's at least, you were not going to completely ignore what happened before. We're going to try and repair it in different ways. I think the Kylo and Rey dynamic was decent. I think it helped explain a lot of kind of who they were and the connection between the two, and the fact that they were kind of swapped between, so big spoilers. At this point, I probably haven't spoiled much. I've already spoiled a few things, but um, now we're into the bigger spoiler territory. The revelation that you had Ben Solo, who you knew, who was a Skywalker by lineage, and Rey, who's ultimately a Palpatine by lineage, old Emperor Palpatine there on the Senate floor when the chamber was empty, was fathering a kid, and and this was the result was Rey. So I think that's interesting stuff. I think very very interesting stuff. Um, and I think that was, I mean, a lot of people disagree. Oh no, that was a stupid twist. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, Star Wars has always had a strong element of lineage and family, and you are more than kind of your background. I mean, that's been a common thread from the sequels, or sorry, from the originals. So it makes sense that we're going to go back to that. Does it make sense that all the characters are somehow related to other characters like in real life? Well, no, of course not. But this is space wizards with magic, magic swords, and so yeah, it kept in theme with the rest. And I guess that's my kind of not closing thought, but overall thought with the movie is that if if you've been on board for Star Wars, if you like Star Wars and you like kind of what it brings and the universe it provides and all of that, then this movie will feel in that universe. You may not like it, but you will at least acknowledge it, I think, as, a part of the rest. It feels like the rest. I think that people who deny that are getting way too hung up in the fact that they don't like Ray or they don't like, various parts of the cast or what have you. But this movie felt like the other movies. In many cases, it felt like The Force Awakens did. It felt like a kind of a carbon copy of those original movies, like it was playing a greatest hits album of those greatest movies. But that's what it was doing. Was nice to see Lando. That was a good point. I like that a lot. Always like to see Billy D. Williams doing his thing. Interesting that this Lando. I mean, it felt like the Lando from the original movies. It didn't feel like the Lando from Solo. It felt like a good solid Lando. So I like that a lot. Um, I there are lots of little moments that were fine. I mean, there's nothing really terrible in this film. I guess the other big point I would make is that the movie felt like a video game in the sense that if you played a video game with a ton of cutscenes and it feels like you're just kind of walk down this corridor, jump, 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 and then cutscene, 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 maybe some real time events that are going on. Hit the X button now. That's how this movie felt. It had a distinct feeling of being just kind of a video game playing out moments, more than I mean, it was definitely hopping from point to point to point, and nothing inherently wrong with that. I mean, Ray was overpowered to an absurd level, and I think that's I'm not saying that, no, not because she's a woman. They kind of overpowered Kylo Ren as well. I mean, both in order to kind of provide bigger stakes and bigger moments and even bigger. They overpower these characters, and Ray was just ridiculous. The Force healing power and some other stuff. The interesting thing about, well, I don't know. It just Force healing as a concept, a little silly. Always has been a little silly. That's certainly been brought up before in other mediums. This is not the first time it's ever been done in Star Wars history. A lot of that has been decanonized, but whatever. It's hard for me to tell what's in and what's out now with the strange new roadmap that Kathleen Kennedy drew for Star Wars. I think there's a lot of great material that got washed away, but anyway, I think that Ray being super overpowered, the downside to that for me was that it lowered the stakes. You never really felt like Ray was in danger at any point in the movie. And she was so powerful at different times. You know she's getting away. You know it's going to be fine. And yet it's that's what they give you. So that was disappointing. I mean, I mean, within the first 30 minutes of the movie, you're aware that Rey is so overpowered that when she's doing just ridiculously silly stuff, unless your mind is really fixated on it, you don't care anymore. You're just kind of, waiting to see how the pieces are going to fall in place for the end. And the end is not surprising, but it's not terrible. It fits. It wraps everything up with a bow and ties it. It does not defy expectations. It does. It delivers on expectations, by and large. I've read a lot of the posts about Ray being a Mary Sue and just all that, and I mean, I guess I don't get all hung up on it. I mean, some people get really frothy at the mouth over, but she's a Mary Sue. And it's like, yeah, but a lot of characters in movies are. That's kind of the nature of a lot of action and sci-fi stuff in movies. The main character becomes weirdly invincible and can do a ton of everything. And yeah, there's a lot of good movies where they don't do that, and those are good movies, and those are better movies. Certainly, Star Wars. I mean, Star Wars has never been the best movie of all time. At least not for me. It's been a solid sci-fi adventure popcorn movie. Very pretty to look at, some fun stuff in there, but not like the best movie of all time. Not I mean, even I don't, maybe I have to hand in my geek card now by saying that, but I mean, even people say, "Oh, The Empire Strikes Back is the best Star Wars movie ever made." Yeah, it's a good movie, but I've seen better. I mean, of all the movies ever made, yeah, no way. There's lots of better movies, in a bunch of different fronts. And for example, I do like a lot of Christopher Nolan's films. I like The Prestige. I liked I just like a lot of his films. But look at The Prestige, and you look at kind of what worked in that, this character study of two people and the battle between them and kind of that dynamic. And that's not a Star Wars movie. If they inserted, if they had Christopher Nolan come in and direct a Star Wars movie, it would probably suck because it's not. He's doing something completely different. Now, if Christopher Nolan's told a story with some new characters set in the Star Wars universe doing some space stuff, I'm sure that would be great, but it would not be the same as Star Wars. And so I think a lot of people, they get overly fixated on, oh, Ray's powerful and all the rest. And I don't, I'll say for the record, I don't think these people are like hate women and that's why they hate Ray. But I do think they've worked themselves up unnecessarily about, a fact of a movie that is frankly what a lot of movies do. So for what it's worth. Rose Tiku, barely in the movie at all. So people who don't like her, I guess, hooray there. I mean, I feel bad that the cop from Heroes is in this, and he is the new Porkins. I mean, good God, you've been eaten. Um, you've beaten the other rebels. What are you doing? I think that the stuff they did with Leia was decent. The little clip they had of Luke and Leia training with lightsabers and him training her kind of to be a Jedi. That's like you see that for just a little blip. And you're like, hold on, when did this happen? Why did we wait till now to mention this? We should have we didn't go into greater depth. This is compelling stuff here. Why didn't we do more stuff with this way back when? That would have been good to see more of. I mean, in general, if you like big space, things blowing up, you're looking to kind of tie up the Star Wars universe and that kind of core set, you probably like this movie. I think if you didn't care for I mean, for me, I didn't like Last Jedi, but I was not one of these people just immensely hated it. But in seeing this movie, it really stands out to me now as a bigger sore thumb in the set of 9 films. Just a misfire, if you will. And I think at this point, Disney and Star Wars and a lot of even journalists are starting to acknowledge that fact. Um, you're always going to have some people. I guess I should, some people have made a big deal about, hey, this is the first gay couple in all of Star Wars we got to see in this movie because at the end in the celebration, kind of in the background, the older lady who's a commander of the rebels, she's been in the last 2 movies, but just kind of as a very, very background character, kind of hanging out. She kisses another woman, and then she holds her hand, and it lasts for all of like 1 second, and who cares? I think I'm sorry for people who are saying that's the first representation of LGBTQ kind of stuff. I mean, it's a space movie with aliens. The Ewoks are running around. For all you know, the Ewoks are all gay. You don't know. I mean, when 2 aliens are kind of, we've seen 2 aliens kind of holding each other before. What? Why? Who could tell what they are? We have no idea what's going on there. So I mean, great. I guess there was that moment. I don't think that satisfies anybody who's saying that Star Wars needs more representation. I also don't think this ruins the movie by making it super woke or whatever you want to call it. It just I don't know. It's a space wizards movie. That's space wizards with light swords. That's what they're doing. They're playing around. So, I like Star Wars. I like the series. I think it's fun. It's good. I think this movie fits right in with the rest of them, and it's fine. And should you go see it? Yeah, of course. I mean, it's a big budget Star Wars film. And if you don't want to give Disney your money because you hate Disney, then don't go see it. I mean, there, you can go see Cats. Cats is on. Supposedly those cats are super horny, so you can do that. Or Jumanji's out. You can watch Jumanji. Anyway, there you go. It's my review of Star Wars. What'd you think? Did you like it? Did you watch it? Leave a comment below. Would love to know your thoughts, your opinions on the last Skywalker and the last of the series of 9 movies. Let me know what you think. Like, subscribe, or don't. Your call. Maybe you're like, I hate Star Wars, and this guy didn't say he hates Star Wars, so I hate this review. That's fine. you be Have your own opinion, man. It's like just your opinion, man. That's all it is. Thanks for listening.